All right, y'all. So it's been about a month and a half since my client has came in, and as you can tell, it is looking a little crazy. So today we're gonna be doing number one on the top with the grain, and we're just gonna be doing a half fade, making his waves pop out nice. So right now I'm going with the number one, and we debulking the top, we taking the length down, and we're going with the grain. So by going with the grain, what that means is we're just following the natural path that his hair is laying down, and his hair is laying down forward, and we're gonna make sure we go over it a good amount of times just to get it nice and even so that we don't have to go back. And right now I'm going in with my number 1.5. The lever is all the way open, and we're just going to be taking out some weight from the sides so that we can prep for our fade. And now I'm going in with my Babbless flash effects, and we're just going to be creating our first guideline. And I do have a pair of soft and sharp trimmers. The reason being why is because I like to create my guidelines with my soft trimmers because I want to make it as easy as possible for me to take out that bottom line. So by going in with my soft trimmers, it's going to help it come out a lot easier. And right after we done going over it with our soft trimmers, we're going to go right underneath it with our sharp trimmers just to get a little tighter to the skin. It's going to create a nice transition. And just remember, when you are balding out your client, don't dig in, just let the blade do its work. And so right now I'm going in with my lever open, no guard, with my Babbless Gold Effects, and we are going to be creating our first guideline. I am bringing my guideline up an inch because I don't want to struggle when I'm taking out that guideline. I want to give myself enough space to have a nice smooth transition. Now I got my cordless magic clip and the lever is all the way closed. And when I am taking out this guideline, I'm no longer laying it on the heel of the blade. I'm putting it more towards the taper side of the blade. And I am doing this because when I change the angle, the cutting teeth are now closer to the skin, so it does help take that guideline out. So right now we are fully closed on our lever, and we're going to be bringing up our first initial bottom guideline about halfway to the top line. And I like to give myself a good amount of space because I do want to create a nice transition. So I make sure I give myself that space before I move forward. We are going halfway right now on the lever, and we are going to be taking out that last initial guideline. And usually when I am taking out my guidelines, I only like to use the last 2 to 3 teeth on my blade because I want to specifically focus on what area I'm trying to work on. I don't want to put the full blade down and then by mistake hit an area that I wasn't trying to hit. So just always be aware of that, guys. And once I am done doing that system, I usually go with my lever and I like to play around and just detail any of the light spots or little areas that I see that need to be fixed. And I do this because I want to make sure I'm satisfied before I move on. I don't want to move forward and then end up going back down to touch certain areas. It's just going to mess me up. I want to be consistent and just keep flowing with my rhythm. So now, once we're done doing that, I'm going in with my one guard all the way open, and we're doing the same steps, creating that inch guideline. And you want to make sure that each section is about the exact same size because you don't want to have one section that is an inch and another section that's 1.5 inches. It's just going to create inconsistency, y'all. And we're closing up that lever all the way. And right now we're just going to be detailing that line, softening it out. Mind you, the one close is not going to take out this bottom line. We are going to go back in with our 1/16 guard, our half guard, if you like to call it, or our 0.5 guard, and that's what's going to be taking out this line. So right now my aim is just to soften it up. All right, so now we're on to our 0.5 guard, our half guard, and we're going to be closing it halfway, and we're going to be taking out this last bottom line. And mind you, we're only using the last 2 to 3 teeth of the blade, guys. Remember that. And notice how my angle is changing a little bit when I am cutting. I'm not cutting straight upwards. It is due to the fact that his hair is growing in different angles. So I want to make sure that I'm hitting it against the grain. And now I'm closing it up one more notch. And I'm just going a little bit below that last notch that we left at. And I'm just going to be slowly working my way down until I get to that bottom line. And y'all, I'm constantly brushing the hair back to its natural laying path. I want to make sure that I'm brushing, I'm being consistent. So I'm going to be brushing, stroking, brushing, stroking. And this half guard is probably the most crucial part towards the blend. That's why I like to spend most of my time around this area because it is the transition in between the lightness and the darkest point. So that's why I usually like to detail and take most of my time around this area. And the final step that I'm going to be doing to finish off the side is I'm going to be using my razor comb. And what a razor comb does is it just takes out any of the dark spots. This is just another technique I picked up while cutting hair, and I found that it's very good for detailing. So now we're moving on to the other side, y'all, and we're going to be doing the exact same steps. So just try and stay along, watch a little bit, and I'm hoping you guys are learning something. So for me personally, the hardest part about fading into waves I find is blending the fade into the actual wave. So what I usually like to do is I'll do the one open on the top, and then as I get more towards the fade, I'll close up my lever so that it slowly gradually starts to blend in. So this is my first YouTube video that I ever created for y'all guys, and honestly it's been a crazy process. Like, there's been a lot of ups and downs. There's been times where my video deleted, I had to redo a lot of things, long nights trying to figure out how to edit properly. But the one thing this has taught me is to learn to roll with the punches, right? Everything might not go your way, but it doesn't mean you give up. It doesn't mean you stop doing what you're doing. You still gotta push forward. You always just gotta remind yourself at the end of the day of why you're doing this in the first place, right? Find your purpose, and once you have that, no matter what will happen, you'll keep pushing forward, y'all. So you guys do probably notice that I am changing my clippers. And the reason why is because the more you cut hair and the more you get to test clippers out, you get to find out what each clipper is good at, what they're more faster at. So for me personally, I do find that my magic clip is a little bit more sharper than my babless, even when it is zero gap. So that's why I do like using my magic clip to take out my guidelines. And then as you can see, I'll go with my babless to create my guidelines and also to detail. And detailing to me is probably one of the most important things when it does come to cutting hair, when it does come to giving a fade. Because 9 times out of 10, when you go through your system once, there's still going to be areas that you need to work out, that you need to touch up. So that's when the detailing brings a 7 out of 10 haircut to a 10 out of 10 haircut. And I like to get through my system as quick as possible, still being efficient. But I don't like to detail while I'm cutting, because then I typically get lost and I can end up spending so much more time than I plan to. So I usually like getting through my system and then detailing at the end. So one thing we have to take into consideration is the way his hair is growing on the sides. It's not growing down, it's growing kind of diagonally. So for us to go against the grain, we have to hit it the opposite directions by angling our clipper. So now that we're starting off at the back, we're going to first start off by combing out our crown. We want to make sure that we're following the way the hair is growing when we're combing it out. It does get tricky because the crown does grow in a spiral, as you can see. So we want to make sure that we follow the pattern that the hair is growing in. And I don't know about y'all, but typically I do fade the whole head whenever I am doing my haircuts. I only did side to back for YouTube purposes so I could get good angles. But leave a comment down below on if you guys do fade the full head or if you do fade the sides and then the back, and let me know why. So to continue where we left off, we made our bald line and then we went with our lever open about 1 inch up, and now we're with our lever closed and we're going up between halfway in between those two guidelines, and now we're just going to drop it halfway and we're just going to take out that last middle initial guideline. And I believe so much in consistency, guys. You got to be consistent with everything that you do, especially your fade. You can't do one side this one way and then the other side the other way and then the back a whole different way, because it's never going to come out the same. You got to make sure that you stay consistent and that you know your system. Once you know your system, then you may be able to kind of get out of the boundaries. But for the most part, for any beginners or any intermediate barbers, just make sure that you practice your system and you make sure that it's on point until you get to the point where you are comfortable so that you can maneuver around it. And now we're going in with our 0.5 and our half guard, and we're just going to be taking out this last middle guideline, starting halfway and then slowly working our way close down to that bottom line. And I want you guys to pay attention to this specific area. A lot of barbers have trouble connecting the back to the sides because that is where the head shape starts to curve. So what I like to do often is I like to make sure that I take my time around this area to make sure that the transition is smooth. Alright, so now I've gone onto my no guard open, and I'm just going to be detailing, basically finding any dark spots, any little areas that I feel like I need to fix around. And just a little tip for y'all, by using the corners of your teeth, you can really go up higher into the blend because you are specifically cutting through tiny bits of hairs. You're not trying to take out chunks. So by using the corner, you can bring your open higher than where you originally created your guidelines, by just angling it at a different direction and only using the 1 to 2 teeth. So we're at the lineup time, y'all. Now what I'm doing is I'm going in with my razor comb, just lightening up any of the dark areas, any of the overlaying hairs, so that when we put that lineup in, it's gonna come out nice and crispy. And as you can see, my client does have a light spot on the left side, so we are going to be avoiding that with the razor comb. And when I start my lineup, I'm going to be starting at the highest receding point and then working my way to the middle and then to the side. And the reason being why I start at the highest point is because I don't want to start at a low point. I'm just going to end up having to raise it up higher to connect it and make it look even to the other side. And now we move on to our vertical bars. I'm angling my clipper at around a 75-degree angle just because I want to get that nice box shape. Depending on the client, I don't usually like to do a 90 because sometimes it does look like it's pushing outwards instead of having that nice shape. So I am keeping it at a 75 and I'm lightly tapping it. I don't want to push it in and bring it back. And now we're going to be using our cordless air compressor going along with our 245 no drip. And we're just going to be lightly spraying the hairline and continuously making it darker if needed. I don't like to add too much because I do want it to look sharp, but at the same time I want it to look more on the naturaler side. And usually when I hit the vertical bars, I do start off a lot darker at the top, and then once I get more to the bottom of the vertical, I do like to kind of blend it into the fade, because then it's going to look too unrealistic, and that's not the goal. The goal is to, yes, make it look sharp, but at the same time not look too unrealistic. And now we're just going to be going back in with our trimmers just to retouch our lineup before we go in with our razor. And I don't know how y'all feel about enhancements, but personally, I do rock with them because there are going to be clients that don't have the perfect lineup. And the confidence that you give them by adding this service on top of your haircut, that's another service you can add, and that's something that's just going to put you ahead of every other average barber. And now we're getting on to the razor work. So when we are using our razor, we want to make sure that we have good tension by pulling the skin with our thumb. And we are only using either the heel or the front of the blade. We never really want to use the full blade because, like I said, we might be hitting areas that we don't want to hit. And over here, I did see some overlaying hairs, so I'm just going to be going with the grain, knocking them down, making sure that lineup is nice and clean. It's also good to remember whenever you are using your razor, not to put too much tension onto it, not to push too much pressure. You just want to lay the blade down and let it do its work. And right here, I'm just going to be shaving my client's forehead. And what this is doing is going to be removing any dead skin and any hair that's laying on it. And this is going to make the hairline pop a lot more because we are creating more of a contrast. And to finally finish off the waves, we're just going to be taking off any of the loose hairs that we see on top with our trimmers. We are laying our trimmers on the heel because we don't want to dig into it and patch our client. So we're just taking down the top, making sure that it's as pristine and as clean as possible, y'all. Details, details, details matter. You want to make sure that your client comes out looking and feeling amazing, because you'll end up being able to charge as much as you want, especially when you have your clientele and your cuts back it up. And to finish it off, I'm going to be using some coconut oil, some natural coconut oil, to give it a nice little shine, a nice little pop. And that's the final cut. I appreciate y'all for watching. If y'all could like, comment, subscribe, and I'm going to leave all my socials down below. Stay tuned for the next one.